Yes, Shri Radhey, dictation exercise 7. Dictation 80 words, a minute, start. It was not often that Mr. Bells left his house for very many hours with no one in it. Full stop. During the day, Miss Black was there for most of the time. Full stop. Miss Black could not be called his housekeeper as he himself kept watch on the stores and on the money spent. Full stop. In fact, he bought most of the food, cleaning materials, and so on, on his way home from the office and merely passed them to Miss Black to put away. Full stop. No, Miss Black could not be given the high sounding name of housekeeper, but neither could she be called the woman who did for him. Full stop. She fell somewhere between these two high and low points. Full stop. She was a daily help of the most valuable kind and looked after the house of Mr. Bells with as much care as she would have looked after her own had she had one of her own. Full stop. But she had no house of her own, and in the evening she went off, and even Mr. Wells did not know where she went for what she did. Full stop. During the day, therefore, his house was in good hands. Full stop. Para. In the evening, there was himself and there was his brother. Full stop. Generally, they were both at home, for neither of them was much given to going out. Full stop. They did not like parties and they did not like the pictures. Full stop. They did not care to pay high prices to see plays which in their opinion were generally not worth the money that had to be spent in getting up to town and paying for a reasonable place. Full stop. Neither of the men had married and neither had a regular girl friend. Full stop. Their evenings were therefore generally spent in the house, and it was the house that the both loved more than any other thing in the world. Full stop. It was certainly a lovely little house, far enough away from the city to be almost in the country. Full stop. It was peaceful and there were good views from the windows. Full stop. From sea outside it looked in most ways much like the home of anyone with a reasonably well paid position in the city. Full stop. Few people ever stepped inside, but those who did were generally surprised, for certainly the inside of the house was not in any way like the common run of houses. Full stop. It was full of the most valuable things, all carefully placed and marked. Full stop. What had been two living rooms had been made into one very large room in the form of the letter L. Full stop. The room was white and as clean as if it had been in the hands of the painter that very day. Full stop. Everything in the room was clearly a showpiece, something bought at a sale and for which a high price had to be paid. Full stop. The pictures were old masters and the books were beautifully covered. Full stop. The table and all other pieces had been carefully bought one by one as opportunity and money made such buying possible. Full stop. It was such a room as one might expect to find in one of the great houses built in a past age, but no one could possibly expect to see anything of the kind in such a place. Full stop. The room was priceless, for many of the objects could not be found for a second time. Full stop. And so the brothers spent their evenings and weekends among their much loved objects of art and tried to make still more perfect that which was already perfection. Full stop. Para. It was not often, as we have said, that Mr. Wells left his house with neither his brother nor Miss Black in it. Full stop. But on that night he had done so. Full stop. Work had kept him late in the city and his brother had not been well and had gone away to have a small but necessary operation. Full stop. Miss Black had left at 5:30 as usual. Full stop. Mr. Bells read his paper while waiting for the 8:49 train home, but the train was late in starting as there was some mist in places along the line and it stopped several times before reaching his station. He got out and walked towards his home. Full stop. The mist in the air seemed to have a red touch, he thought, as he walked on. Full stop. Then he had a feeling of fear, of cold fear, for without doubt something was on fire, something was burning. Full stop. He broke into a run and then he stopped. Full stop. After all, it was not his house that was on fire, his own most beautiful and loved house. Full stop. It was the house immediately behind his. Full stop. But at the movement of his fear, he saw his life clearly for the first time. Full stop. He saw that he had spent his years loving cold and lifeless objects. Full stop. He saw that he loved no living being and that no living being loved him or cared that he was late home, that he was cold and had known fear. Full stop.